How's it going, guys? My name is Franco and welcome back. Today we are going to be taking a look at the ETH burn and the ETH merge, and by the end of this video we are going to know what the ETH merge and burn are, what this is going to do to the price of Ethereum, what effect it's going to have, and how we can best act on this info to basically make a bajillion dollars, right? Now, make sure you watch to the end of this video because the information and the data that came through when I was going through and making this video was not what I expected, and it definitely changed my outlook on the price of ETH going into the future. Alright, let's go. Part 1. What is the ETH merge and the ETH burn? Alright, so let's start off with the ETH burn. The ETH burn occurred first, and basically what it was hang on. EIP 1159 will burn a significant portion of the transaction fees on Ethereum while introducing variable block sizes to improve efficiency. The upgrade will negatively impact Ethereum miners but will also add value to ETH holders by making the asset more scarce. Gas fees will also be more predictable. So basically, in the most simple terms possible, the current fee method is that basically each block just goes straight to the miners. Any fees or the mining rewards, they were just going straight to the miners, whereas now the fees, some go to the miners and others just go straight to burn. So instead of heaps and heaps of ETH just going to the miners, now some of it's getting burnt, which is reducing the inflation rate of Ethereum and basically making the asset class more scarce. Okay, so then after the burn, once the Ethereum EIP 1159 was implemented and Ethereum was getting burnt through the gas fees, they then introduced the merge. Okay, so the merge, all the merge was the Ethereum's network's transition from proof of work. So proof of work is what Bitcoin is. That's where you're going to see your Bitcoin miners and everything, to proof of stake, which occurred in September 2022. The way ETH was issued underwent changes at the time of that transition. Previously, ETH was issued from two sources, execution layer and the consensus layer. Since the merge, issuance on the execution layer is now 0. So you don't really need to know too much about the whole network side of things and how exactly it actually changed the network and everything. What's really important here is how it changed the supply of Ethereum. So basically, if we scroll down here, we'll find it eventually. Here it is. So when Ethereum went to proof of stake, the amount of Ethereum being issued was greatly reduced. So you can see here that the net reduction in annual ETH issuance was roughly close to 88.7%. So that meant that there was 88.7% less Ethereum going onto the network every day, every week, every year, whatever, which is a significant reduction, and that is obviously reducing the supply in Ethereum and hopefully will increase price. So obviously the burn and the merge were implemented relatively close to one another. So how did this actually affect the supply of Ethereum? So we can see here we're on ultrasound money. This just tracks the total supply of Ethereum and a few other different stats, which can be quite useful. So you can see here, this is where the burn was introduced, the 6th of August it says. And you can see that the supply of Ethereum continued to increase. So obviously there was some Ethereum getting burned at this stage, but the supply being introduced far outweighed the burn rate at that time. So the price of Ethereum continued to increase, the amount of Ethereum on the network continued to increase quite rapidly. And then right around here, where this line is down the center, that's where the merge was introduced. So the burn was burning all the Ethereum through the transaction fees and EIP 1159, and then the merge, which transitioned Ethereum from proof of work to proof of stake, slashed the rewards for miners, or removed the rewards for miners because it was now proof of stake, obviously, but slashed the amount of rewards that were coming on for validators and whatever else, and really slowed down the issuance of Ethereum, which actually made the network deflationary because the amount of Ethereum being rewarded to validators through the proof of stake network was less than what was being burnt through gas fees. And you can see here that if we just have a look at the price of ETH since the merge, so if we go to this one, you can see it was a little bit inflationary at the first, but then ever since then it's been slowly dropping down. It's slowed down a little bit, but it's running at about 0.3% per year roughly since the merge. And you can see that I'm not sure if this is on average, I think. So the ETH per year, so we've got about 1,000 ETH a year being burnt through the gas fees, and about 650,000 being issued to the validators. So clearly there is more being burnt than is being issued, which means Ethereum is deflationary, and you can see the supply chain since the merge is currently at about 290,000 ETH have been burnt, which is just a crazy amount. Now if we compare this to proof of work, so you can see you can simulate the proof of work on this. So we'll go back to the burn. So you can see here that we've got ETH and Bitcoin running side by side. So obviously ETH hasn't split at this point, but you can see it runs up. And right at the merge, you can see we've got the normal Ethereum if Ethereum continued as a proof of work network, and ETH if it was proof of stake, which it is now. So you can see proof of work just kept going up and up and up at about 3% per annum, whereas the merge made ETH deflationary. You can just see it kind of plateau there and start to decrease. Okay, so since the burn, we can see down the bottom here that the supply growth has been negative 1% per year. Now they have, if we scroll down a little bit further, they've basically got their expectations. So the ETH supply 200-year projection. Now 200 years is a long, long time, but that's all right. So you can see, 2015 to 2022, there was a lot of growth in the supply of ETH. And then the merge occurred in about 2022, 2023. And you can see that it's projected to basically just, fall quite significantly over the course of 200 years. Now, of course, 200 years is a long time. It's set to about basically half the supply, about 120 million to 65 million. So just less than half of the supply will be burnt. But you can see it's going to take a long, long time. So if we just looked, for example, 2023, let's go to 2033, just because it's a nice round 10 years. You can see that about 10 million ETH will be burned. So obviously quite a significant number, but it is over a very, very long time. So how important is the burn? Is the burn going to send ETH parabolic and, take over Bitcoin and, be the greatest asset class on earth? Maybe it'll have no effect. What we're going to do now is jump into the charts and we'll figure out that answer. So if we're trying to come up with a rough number as to where the burn is going to put ETH in terms of price by the end of this cycle, it's always good to start off with Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is basically, Bitcoin and ETH are like this. They're so close together. Now you can see here, so what I've done here is we've got each Bitcoin cycle basically, and how much smaller this cycle is than the last one. So this cycle here, so we'll just call this one cycle 2, is 0.01195 blah 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 bigger than, or we should say smaller, but it is 0.019119 times bigger than the last cycle. This one is 0.19 times larger than the last one. This one is 0.173 times bigger than the last one. And we can basically use this data to continue projecting forward, Okay, so we got 0.011, 0.19, 0.17. What's the next cycle going to be? Now, in general, what we would expect is this number down here to get larger. Now, of course, this one is a little bit smaller than the last cycle. For whatever reason, we don't know, but it can't continue at, only being 20% the time, 20% as large as the last cycle. It has to kind of get larger and larger and larger, because otherwise the price of Bitcoin will basically stagnate. Okay, so here we are now in our trustworthy paint, because I didn't really know how. I wanted to show you guys kind of the maths behind it, right? So essentially all we've really done here is I've just got cycle 4 here. So cycle 4 divided by cycle 3 equals roughly 0.2. We're kind of just looking at the last cycle, and on this one here we've got so cycle 4 divided by cycle 3 gives us our number, which we're just going to round it to 0.2 for the sake of this example. Now, if we wanted to extrapolate out the data and find new cycles, cycles that haven't happened yet, the next cycle, for example, all we need to do is rearrange this equation. So we can just multiply both sides by cycle 3. So now we've got cycle 4 is equal to 0.2 times cycle 3. Now, if we could do this even further, we could go cycle 5 is equal to 0.2 times cycle 4. And we could just keep doing this. Cycle 6 is equal to, now obviously this number here, the 0.2, is subject to change. That's what we're talking about. We're saying that this number is basically going to get larger, just looking at the history and how we would expect price to, obviously, not just never grow. So we can find our future, what would we call it? Our future price projections, basically. So now let's do this with Ethereum. We're going to roughly get these numbers and extrapolate them forward with Ethereum, with the same idea, basically, that these numbers that we're multiplying by are going to get bigger with time. So you can see here that with the first cycle, we've got a similar number, 0.016, and we're just going to assume that it's going to go up 0.2 times this time instead of that number, obviously. So that's pretty similar with the Bitcoin one. You can see here that we've got, on that first cycle, 0.011, and then it went roughly up about 0.2, just about. So we're going to assume that. Obviously, we can't get the price exactly right. Now we're going to do this with the market cap. Okay, so let's assume that the market cap is going to go up 0.2%. That is going to take us to 1385, or about a roughly, around about 1.5, 1.6 trillion. Now, why we're using the market cap is because this doesn't take into account the supply of ETH. Because when we take into account the supply of ETH, obviously the price is going to change. The supply of ETH varies quite significantly, so we're not really 100% sure what the price to what the market cap's going to be. So if we go back and we just have a look at this previous cycle, right? So the market cap increased by roughly 7,000%, but if we have a look at the price, that last cycle, it only increased about 6,000%. So why is there that variable? Well, basically because whilst this cycle was happening, the supply of ETH was increasing. So the increasing supply of ETH meant that the price didn't increase as much as the market cap. So what this means is, now that we've got a deflationary ETH, is what we're going to see is that the market cap is actually going to get outpaced by the price of ETH. So where previously there was more supply entering the Ethereum supply, so it would hold back the price basically. This time is very different in the sense that there is less ETH available, which means that there's going to be a greater increase in the price. So what we're looking at here is basically that based off this number, because obviously we don't have the last, for whatever reason, this chart doesn't display the last ETH cycle, but we're just going to assume, based on our projections, that it's going to go up roughly, 0.2 times the last cycle, that we're going to have about a 14x. So let's just say 1385% is what we're going to increase by in terms of market cap. How is this going to affect the price of ETH? So as we said, we're expecting about a 14x on the market cap of ETH. But how is this going to look on the price of ETH? Because now obviously we have a deflationary token. So instead of the price of ETH increasing by less, it should, in theory, increase by more. So the market cap of ETH is going up 0.2%, but we need to remember that that 0.2% is going to be 1385 divided by 0.96. Now the reason I've done 0.96 is because, as we looked at before, if we go back to here, we're looking at ETH burning at about 1% per annum. Now a typical Bitcoin or Ethereum cycle is about 4 years from bottom to top, roughly. Now it could be 4 years, could be 3 years. We're not 100%. We're just going to be using that assumption. And if we have a look at this on the price range, you can see that it takes us up to 1441 instead of 1385. So it's clear that the Ethereum burn is going to have a pretty, somewhat of an impact at least on the price of ETH in the next cycle. Meaning, because the market cap of ETH is, whilst it increases, 13, 1385%, the price of ETH is increasing faster than the market cap because of that deflationary aspect. But how big of an impact is this? Obviously there's some impact, but how big of an impact is it compared to if Ethereum just stayed proof of work? What is this going to look like compared to another cycle, where Ethereum was still proof of work? Let's have a look. So, it's a bit crowded at the moment here. Hang on, we'll just get rid of that price range. There we go. And then if we add the text in, so this price range here is looking at 1385%, so the same increase in market cap, but we're multiplying it by 1.126, and that's to account for the inflation. So we're just assuming an Ethereum inflation rate of roughly 3%. It's actually a little bit higher, but let's just assume 3%. For this, over the course of the 4 years, we're going to see a 1.26. I must have actually done it by a little bit more than 3. I think I did I must have done 3.2 or 3.1. So in this scenario where Ethereum is proof of work and it's still continuing to have a higher inflation rate, whilst the market cap grows by 1385, the price of Ethereum is only going to increase by 1230 because obviously the supply is increasing. Now, how big of a difference is this in all reality? So let's pull up the other price range. So they're overlapping just a little bit. Let's pull out our horizontal line and let's pull out our price range in between those two. Now, it's a little bit small, but if we zoom in a little bit, you can see that the impact is 15%. So over the course of this cycle, there's going to be, we'd assume roughly, just based off these very rough calculations, around a 15% variable in the price of Ethereum because of it being deflationary. Now, is that enormous? Not necessarily, but if you were to buy at the bottom and sell at the exact top, hypothetically in both scenarios, you can see that there's a 200% difference in price. So instead of getting a 12x, you get a 14x on your money with the difference. So there is definitely a pretty large gap, with Ethereum being deflationary now, the price of ETH is expected to go a lot higher. Only 15% from, the top to the top. But from the bottom to the top, it's about 200%. Quite a large difference if you were able to buy at the exact bottom, and you were to sell at the exact top. Quite a, niche amount of people, I reckon, are going to be doing that. But it is quite a significant number. And you can see, how it's going to affect the price of ETH. So in conclusion, is the burn going to make a huge difference to the price of ETH? Well, that's a pretty tough question to answer because obviously there's going to be some impact on the price of ETH. You can clearly see, 15% variable based on the, information we've just gone through and the data we've gone through. But in the grand scheme of things, is it really that important? That tiny little 15% compared to the top to the bottom. What I'm basically saying is, should this be changing your trading strategy? Is this suddenly going to make me go all in on Ethereum and, bet the house on Ethereum? Me personally, no. This only, changes things a little bit. Yes, the gains are going to be bigger over the long term, especially compared to if it was proof of work still. But does this somehow magically make Ethereum the best, investment ever or anything like that? Over an extra, potential, 15% or whatever? It doesn't really, not in my opinion. There's still, whilst there is the case that Ethereum, this is going to improve it greatly, and that with continued network upgrades that, it could take over Bitcoin and whatever else, that's for sure. But it definitely isn't worth, that tiny little amount compared to all these big, price ranges that we see. That little amount at the top there is not the be all and end all. It shouldn't really be changing your trading strategy. I know it would have been nice to say that the burn is going to send Ethereum to 100k by the end of, 2025 or something. It would have been nice to project that, but that's not really realistic, is it? The burn will have some impact, but not overly. It's not going to be a game changer at the end of the day. It's just going to be nice for those who are holding ETH to get that little bit extra, but at the end of the day, nothing major. Anyways, guys, thank you all for watching. If you did enjoy, hopefully this video, it was a little bit different compared to my previous one, so hopefully you enjoyed. I do have some referral codes down below for Australian exchanges as well as crypto.com, and it is also tax time in Australia, so if you are looking to do your crypto taxes, use Koinly. They're a great software that you basically just give all your trading data to, and then they can spit out a report of your profits and losses, and it's pretty handy. It gets things done really easy. But that's going to be it for today, guys. Hope you have a good one. Enjoy. Remember to like and subscribe.